Listen carefully. Your life is not controlled by luck. It is not controlled by other people. It is controlled by your emotional reactions. Every loss of control, anger, fear, insecurity, overthinking hands power away, and every moment of calm awareness takes it back. This audiobook will not motivate you. It will reprogram you. If you master your inner world, the outer world has no choice but to respond. Stay focused. Stay present. This is where control begins. Chapter 1. Your inner world is the real battlefield. Before anything happens in your life, before success, before failure, before action, something else happens first. The thought, an emotion, an internal reaction. That is where every outcome begins. You don't lose in the real world first. You lose inside, and most people never realize it. They think the battle is external. They think it's the economy, other people, bad luck, unfair circumstances. That's a lie. The real battlefield is invisible. And if you don't control it, you walk into every situation already defeated. You have a choice. Your inner world decides how you interpret reality. And interpretation becomes behavior. Behavior becomes habit. Habit becomes destiny. That's the chain. Not motivation. Not talent. Not intelligence. Control. That's the key. Most people wake up already reacting. They scroll. They compare. They worry. They rehearse conversations that haven't happened yet. Before the day even starts, their emotions are already in charge. And when emotions lead, outcomes suffer. Win inside first. Here is the mistake most people make. They try to control the world instead of controlling themselves. They argue with reality. They fight feedback. They resist pressure. They blame circumstances. And when they fail twice. First, they lose externally. Then they lose internally through frustration, anger, and self-doubt. That second loss is the dangerous one. Because once you lose internally, you start acting desperate. You rush. You overreact. You seek validation. You give away leverage. You don't need their permission. You need self-command. Win inside first. Look closely at successful people. Not loud ones. Not flashy ones. The consistent ones. They don't panic easily. They don't explain themselves constantly. They don't emotionally negotiate with reality. They regulate themselves before they respond. They decide how they will feel before the world tries to decide for them. That's not luck. That's training. And training always starts internally. You have a choice. Your inner world is made of three things. Your thoughts, your emotions, your attention. If you don't control them, someone else will. Media, people, past trauma, fear of judgment. That's how control is lost, quietly, not through force, through influence. And influence only works when your inner world is unguarded. Win inside first. Let's be clear. This is not about suppressing emotions. It's not about pretending you don't feel. It's about commanding your response. Feeling anger is human. Letting anger decide your behavior is weakness. Feeling fear is normal. Letting fear dictate your choices is surrender. You have a choice. That's the key. Here's a simple rule you must internalize. Nothing external has meaning until you assign it one. Someone disrespects you. You decide what that means. Plan fails. You decide what that means. Silence, rejection, delay. You decide. Most people assign meaning automatically, emotionally, unconsciously, and that's how they lose control. Win inside first. When you master your inner world, 3 things change immediately. First, your reactions slow down. You stop leaking energy through impulsive responses. Second, your clarity improves. You see situations as they are, not as your emotions distort them. Third, your presence strengthens. People feel your stability before you speak. This is why calm people intimidate chaotic ones. Not because they're stronger, but because they're centered. That's the advantage. Here's what you must start doing, starting today. Step 1. Notice your internal reactions without acting on them. When something triggers you, pause. Name it. Anger, anxiety, insecurity. Don't fix it. Don't justify it. Just observe it. That pause is power. You have a choice. Step 2. Separate feeling from action. Just because you feel something does not mean you act on it. That's discipline. It's not about emotion. It's about command. Say this internally. I feel this, but I decide. Win inside first. Step 3. Train neutrality under pressure. Pressure reveals who controls their inner world and who doesn't. Start small. Traffic, delays, disagreement. Instead of reacting, practice stillness. Stillness is not weakness. Stillness is preparation. That's the key. Most people never train this. So when pressure hits, they collapse. They say things they regret. They make decisions they can't undo. They show their hand too early. You don't need their permission to stay calm. You don't need validation to remain centered. Control is internal. Win inside first. Understand this deeply. The world does not reward emotional chaos. It exploits it. The calmer you are, the fewer mistakes you make. The fewer mistakes you make, the more leverage you gain. This is not philosophy. This is strategy. And strategy always begins in the mind. If you remember only one thing from this chapter, remember this. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your inner control. That's why everything starts here. Not with action. Not with planning. Not with motivation. With mastery. Win inside first. You now understand where the real battle is fought. But knowing is not enough. Next, we need to expose the most common way people lose power without noticing. Because every emotional reaction has a cost. And most people are paying it daily. You've begun mastering the battlefield. Now let's talk about the leaks. Chapter 2. Emotional reactions are leaks of power. Every reaction has a cost. Most people never calculate it. They just pay it. Anger, defensiveness, anxiety, urgency. Each one leaks control. And the world notices. Every reaction costs me control. When you react emotionally, you reveal information. You reveal what bothers you. You reveal what you fear losing. You reveal where you are insecure. That information becomes leverage. Not because people are evil, but because human nature exploits weakness automatically. You don't need their permission to stay calm. You need awareness. That's the key. Think about anger. Anger feels powerful, feels justified, feels righteous. But anger is not power. Anger is exposure. The moment you lose your temper, you announce, "This got to me." And the moment something gets to you, it controls you. Every reaction costs me control. Defensiveness is no better. Defensiveness says, "I'm threatened. I need to protect my image. I'm afraid of how this looks." That's not strength. That's insecurity trying to speak louder. Calm people don't defend themselves constantly. They let reality speak. You have a choice. Anxiety is the quietest leak of all. It doesn't explode. It drains. Pulls you into the future. It steals attention from the present. It weakens decision-making. An anxious mind is easy to rush, easy to pressure, easy to manipulate, because urgency removes clarity. Every reaction costs me control. Now understand this clearly. People who can't control their emotions are easy to manage. They can be provoked. They can be baited. They can be rushed into bad decisions. Not because they're unintelligent, but because they're reactive. Calm people are different. Calm people create friction. They don't move on your timeline. They don't mirror your chaos. They don't give emotional feedback on demand. That's why calm is intimidating. That's the key. Watch any negotiation. The person who reacts first loses leverage. They explain too much. They justify too fast. They reveal what they want. The calm person waits. Silence stretches. Pressure builds. The reactive one cracks. Every reaction costs me control. This applies everywhere. Work, relationships, family, social situations. The person who gets offended loses frame. The person who stays neutral keeps it. You don't need to win arguments. You need to preserve authority. Authority comes from emotional economy. Spend less. Hold more. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most emotional reactions are habits, not necessities. You've practiced them for years. Someone challenges you, you snap. Someone questions you, you defend. Someone delays, you panic. These are trained responses. And what is trained can be retrained. You have a choice. Let's make this practical. Step 1. Identify your common leaks. Where do you react most often? Disrespect? Uncertainty? Criticism? Silence? That's not random. That's where your power escapes. Say it internally. This is a leak. Every reaction costs me control. Step 2. Delay your response. Not forever. Just long enough to interrupt habit. Count to 5. Breathe once. Lower your shoulders. This tiny delay breaks automatic behavior. That pause is dominance. That's the key. Step 3. Lower emotional volume, not clarity. You don't need to be passive. You don't need to be silent. You need to be measured. Firm voice. Short sentences. No emotional excess. Emotion is noise. Clarity is power. Every reaction costs me control. Here's something most people don't realize. You can disagree without emotion. You can say no without anger. You can walk away without explanation. You don't need their permission to stay composed. Calm does not mean weak. Calm means you are not available for manipulation. Understand this deeply. People test emotional boundaries unconsciously. They push. They provoke. They rush. If you react, they push further. If you stay neutral, they adjust. Calm trains others how to treat you. That's not theory. That's behavior. The goal is not to eliminate emotion. The goal is to contain it. Like pressure in a system, uncontrolled pressure causes leaks. Controlled pressure creates force. You decide. You have a choice. Say this until it becomes automatic. Every reaction costs me control. Say it when you're tempted to argue. Say it when you feel rushed. Say it when you want to explain yourself. That phrase interrupts weakness. That's the key. Here's your daily discipline. For the next 24 hours, react less than usual. Not zero, just less. Pause longer. Speak slower. Explain less. Notice how people respond differently. They lean in. They slow down. They reveal more. Because calm shifts power. The world respects emotional discipline. Not immediately, not loudly, but consistently. People who don't react don't get played. They don't get rushed. They don't get cornered. They choose. Every reaction costs me control. You're beginning to see the pattern. Control is not about domination. It's about regulation. The less you react, the more you decide. And decision is the true source of power. You've now identified the leaks. But there's something deeper. Reactions don't just cost power. They make you predictable. And predictability is vulnerability. You've learned where power escapes. Now let's talk about how the world uses that against you. Chapter 3. The world exploits the emotionally predictable. Predictability is not safety. Predictability is exposure. The moment someone can predict how you will react, they no longer need to fight you. They guide you. Predictable emotions create predictable losses. Most people believe control comes from authority, titles, money, status. That's incomplete. Real control comes from anticipation. If I know what will trigger you, I know how to move you, not forcefully, subtly. That's how power actually works. You have a choice. Think about this carefully. If someone knows you get angry when challenged, they challenge you on purpose. If someone knows you get anxious under pressure, they rush you. If someone knows you fear rejection, they threaten withdrawal. This is not malicious. It's instinctive. Human systems reward those who read patterns. Predictable emotions create predictable losses. Look at the workplace. A boss who knows you fear disapproval can overload you. A colleague who knows you hate confrontation can cross boundaries. A client who senses desperation can negotiate harder, not because they are smarter, because you are emotionally readable. You don't need their permission to be composed. You need awareness. That's the key. Relationships work the same way. If you always chase, you lose leverage. If you always explain, you lower value. If you always react emotionally, you teach others how to control the pace. Emotionally predictable people don't get chosen. They get managed. Predictable emotions create predictable losses. Here's the hard truth. Most people train others how to treat them through their reactions. You snap when disrespected. They know where to hit. You over-explain when questioned. They know where you're unsure. You withdraw when challenged. They know how to silence you. You have a choice. Predictability comes from patterns, and patterns come from unexamined habits. You react the same way every time, because you never pause long enough to change. And repetition builds reputation. Soon, people don't respond to you. They respond to your pattern. That's dangerous. Predictable emotions create predictable losses. Now understand this. Unpredictable people are harder to control. Not chaotic people. Not emotional people. Regulated people. People who don't respond the same way every time. People who pause. People who stay neutral. Neutrality disrupts manipulation. That's the key. Let's make this practical. Step 1. Identify your emotional pattern. Ask yourself honestly, when pressured, do I rush or freeze? When challenged, do I argue or withdraw? When ignored, do I chase or explode? Those are not personality traits. Those are habits. And habits can be broken. You have a choice. Step 2. Interrupt expectation. Next time someone expects a reaction, don't give it. They expect anger? Give calm. They expect explanation? Give silence. They expect urgency? Give patience. This does not mean submission. It means control. Predictable emotions create predictable losses. Step 3. Slow your visible responses. Speak slower than you feel. Move slower than pressure demands. Decide slower than others want. Speed favors manipulators. Slowness favors clarity. That's the key. Here's something powerful to remember. People test predictability unconsciously. They push boundaries just to see what happens. If you react consistently, they adjust their strategy. If you remain neutral, they hesitate. Hesitation creates leverage. Most people confuse being understood with being respected. They think explaining more will protect them. It won't. Explanation feeds predictability. Calm confidence requires fewer words. You don't need their permission to say less. Say this internally often. Predictable emotions create predictable losses. Say it when you feel baited. Say it when you feel rushed. Say it when you feel cornered. That phrase pulls you back into command. You have a choice. Notice this shift as you practice. People stop pushing as hard. They reveal their intentions sooner. They negotiate more carefully because they can't read you easily. Opacity is protection. This does not mean becoming cold or distant. It means becoming measured. Your emotions are not gone. They are governed. Governed emotions don't leak information. That's the advantage. Predictable emotions create predictable losses. Let's be clear. The world is not fair. It is responsive. It responds to emotional signals faster than logic. If you broadcast insecurity, it applies pressure. If you broadcast calm, it adjusts. That's not philosophy. That's behavioral reality. Your task moving forward is simple but not easy. Become less readable, not secretive, not manipulative, just less reactive. Pause before responding. Lower emotional volume. Change patterns deliberately. You have a choice. The more unpredictable your reactions become, the less influence others have. And influence is the real currency. You are no longer being pulled. You are choosing. Predictable emotions create predictable losses. You now understand how predictability makes you vulnerable. But predictability only exists because people are constantly stimulated. Noise, pressure, provocation. To break the pattern, you must learn something rare, the power of not moving. You've seen how the world exploits predictability. Now let's talk about the weapon that stops it. Chapter 4. Stillness is a weapon. Most people think power looks like movement. fast decisions, quick responses, immediate action. That's wrong. Power often looks like nothing. No reaction, no rush, no explanation. Stillness is a weapon. I slow down. I stay in control. In every tense situation, there is pressure. Pressure to respond. Pressure to explain. Pressure to decide now. Pressure exists for one reason: to make you move before you think. And when you move without thinking, you give up control. You have a choice. Silence makes people uncomfortable. That discomfort reveals information. They talk more. They justify. They explain their motives. Silence reverses pressure. Instead of you being evaluated, they feel exposed. That's the key. Think about arguments. The person who raises their voice has already lost leverage. They're trying to regain control emotionally because they lost it internally. The calm person says less. The calm person waits. Waiting is not weakness. Waiting is positioning. I slow down. I stay in control. In negotiations, speed favors the desperate. The person who needs the deal rushes. The person who can wait wins. This applies to money, relationships, opportunities, and decisions. Urgency is almost always a signal of weakness. That's not opinion. That's observation. Stillness does three things simultaneously. First, it protects you from mistakes. You stop reacting on impulse. Second, it shifts pressure outward. Others feel the weight of silence. Third, it clarifies reality. You see what matters and what doesn't. That's why disciplined people move slower and last longer. Most people are uncomfortable with pauses. They fill silence with words. They fill uncertainty with emotion. They fill waiting with anxiety. You don't need to. You have a choice. Here's the discipline you must build. When provoked, pause. When rushed, slow down. When uncertain, wait. Not forever. Just long enough to regain command. That pause is power. I slow down. I stay in control. Silence is not avoidance. Silence is containment. Keeps your thoughts inside until they are clear. Keeps your emotions from spilling where they can be used against you. Controlled people speak after clarity arrives. That's the key. Watch how people behave around stillness. Some get nervous. Some get talkative. Some reveal frustration. All of it is information. Stillness lets others show their hand, while you keep yours hidden. That's leverage. Let's make this practical. Step 1. Practice delayed response. When someone asks you something, don't answer immediately. Breathe. Pause. Even 1 second changes the dynamic. You have a choice. Step 2. Reduce verbal volume. Say less than you want to. Short sentences. Clear words. No emotional padding. Emotion is noise. Silence is signal. I slow down. I stay in control. Step 3. Hold eye contact and still posture. Movement communicates uncertainty. Still posture communicates confidence. You don't fidget. You don't rush. You don't adjust. Stillness speaks. That's the key. Most people fear silence because silence forces them to face themselves. They think being still means being judged. In reality, stillness does the judging, and chaos fails that test. Understand this. Stillness does not mean you never act. It means you act after clarity. Reactive people move first and think later. Controlled people think first and move once. That difference defines outcomes. Say this until it becomes instinct. I slow down. I stay in control. Say it when someone pushes you. Say it when time pressure appears. Say it when emotions rise. Stillness breaks momentum. As you master stillness, something changes. People stop rushing you. They choose words more carefully. They reveal priorities faster. Because your calm disrupts their script. Predictable games fail against stillness. This chapter is not about silence alone. It's about tempo. You choose the pace. You choose the moment. Whoever controls the tempo controls the exchange. I slow down. I stay in control. You are now learning how to stop reacting, how to stop being rushed, how to stop leaking leverage. But stillness is only the beginning. The next step is harder, because sometimes the greatest source of emotional pain is not others, it's reality itself. You've learned how to pause. Now you must learn how to stop fighting what already is. Chapter 5. Stop arguing with reality. Most emotional suffering is unnecessary, not because life is easy, but because people resist what already exists. They argue with reality, and reality always wins. I accept first. I act second. Reality does not respond to complaints. It does not negotiate with emotion. It does not care how you feel about it. It simply is. The moment you resist it, through anger, denial, or blame, you multiply pain. You have a choice. There is a critical difference between pain and suffering. Pain is unavoidable. Suffering is optional. Pain says, "This happened." Suffering says, "This shouldn't have happened." That second sentence is where control is lost. I accept first. I act second. Most people think acceptance means giving up. That's wrong. Acceptance is seeing clearly. When you stop arguing with reality, your energy stops leaking into frustration. That energy becomes available for action. That's the key. Look at failure. Plan fails. A relationship ends. An opportunity disappears. The reactive mind says, "This is unfair." The controlled mind says, "This is information." One creates drama. The other creates strategy. You have a choice. Resistance looks like this: complaining, replaying the past, blaming people, asking, "Why me?" None of that changes reality. It only keeps you emotionally trapped in it. I accept first. I act second. Acceptance does not mean approval. It means acknowledgement. You acknowledge what is true, so you can decide what to do next. Without clarity, action is blind, and blind action leads to repeated mistakes. That's the key. Watch how disciplined people respond to setbacks. They don't panic. They don't dramatize. They don't collapse emotionally. They absorb reality quickly. Then they move. Speed of acceptance determines speed of recovery. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The longer you argue with reality, the longer you stay powerless. Because power only exists in the present moment, not in wishing things were different. You have a choice. Let's make this practical. Step 1. Name reality without emotion. Say it plainly. This deal fell through. This person said no. This plan failed. No adjectives. No story. Facts first. I accept first. I act second. Step 2. Eliminate emotional narration. Stop adding meaning. Not "I was betrayed." Just "this changed." Not "I was disrespected." Just "they responded differently than expected." Narration fuels suffering. Clarity fuels control. That's the key. Step 3. Redirect energy immediately. Once reality is accepted, ask one question only: what is my next move? Not why it happened. Not who's at fault. Next move. You have a choice. Most people never master this. They get stuck in emotional loops. They replay conversations. They relive disappointment. They fantasize about different outcomes, all while reality moves on. Controlled people move with it. I accept first. I act second. Understand this deeply. Reality is not personal. It does not target you. It does not reward you. It does not punish you. It simply responds to behavior and conditions. Taking it personally is emotional waste. Acceptance restores agency. The moment you stop resisting, you regain the ability to choose. And choice is power. That's why acceptance feels relieving. Once practiced, say this until it becomes instinct. I accept first. I act second. Say it when plans change. Say it when people disappoint you. Say it when outcomes are not ideal. Acceptance is not passive. It is preparatory. As you stop arguing with reality, you become harder to destabilize. Others panic. You assess. Others complain. You adjust. Others resist. You adapt. Adaptation always wins long term. This chapter is not about becoming emotionless. It's about becoming efficient. Emotion used without control creates friction. Emotion guided by clarity creates movement. I accept first. I act second. You are now learning to stop fighting what is. But there is another trap that drains control. Even after acceptance, people still suffer. Why? Because they attach. They cling. They need. They depend emotionally on outcomes. And attachment destroys leverage. You've learned to accept reality. Now you must learn how to step back from it. Chapter 6. Detach to dominate. Attachment is invisible pressure. Tightens quietly, pulls subtly, and before you notice, it controls your behavior. Detachment removes that pressure. I observe. I don't cling. Most people don't realize how much they need. They need approval. They need outcomes. They need certainty. They need reassurance. And whatever you need has power over you. That's not philosophy. That's leverage. You have a choice. Attachment creates desperation. Desperation makes you rush. It makes you explain. It makes you accept less than you should. You negotiate against yourself. Before the conversation even starts, detachment fixes this. I observe. I don't cling. Understand this clearly. Detachment does not mean you don't care. It means you are not dependent. You can want something without being controlled by it. You can value people without handing them leverage. That's the key. Look at negotiations. The person who needs the deal loses power. They compromise too early. They reveal urgency. They accept unfavorable terms. The person who can walk away sets the frame. When you need nothing, you negotiate from strength. This applies beyond money, relationships, opportunities, status, validation. The more you need an outcome, the more anxious you become. Anxiety clouds judgment, and cloudy judgment costs control. I observe. I don't cling. Here's the truth most people avoid. Attachment is fear in disguise. Fear of loss. Fear of being alone. Fear of missing out. Fear of rejection. Detachment dissolves fear. By removing dependence, you have a choice. Let's make this practical. Step 1. Notice where you feel emotional urgency. Where do you feel pressure to act fast? Messages, responses, decisions. Urgency usually signals attachment. That's a leak. I observe. I don't cling. Step 2. Mentally rehearse walking away. Before conversations, ask yourself, if this doesn't work out, am I still okay? If the answer is no, you are negotiating from weakness. Detachment begins internally. That's the key. Step 3. Reduce emotional investment in outcomes. Focus on behavior, not results. You control effort. You control preparation. You control response. You do not control outcomes. Clinging to outcomes creates suffering. I observe. I don't cling. Most people think detachment makes them cold. It doesn't. It makes them stable. Stability is attractive. Stability is respected. Stability is trusted. Neediness is not. Watch how detached people move. They listen more. They speak less. They decide calmly. They don't chase. They don't beg. They don't pressure. Because they don't need. Say this internally often. I observe. I don't cling. Say it when you want reassurance. Say it when you fear losing something. Say it when silence makes you uncomfortable. Detachment restores balance. Here's what changes when you detach. You stop over-explaining. You stop proving yourself. You stop negotiating emotionally. Others feel it immediately. They lean in. They slow down. They respect boundaries. That's leverage. Detachment also protects you from manipulation. Guilt doesn't work. Threats don't work. Urgency doesn't work. Because you are not emotionally hooked. You choose. You have a choice. Let's be clear. Detachment is not avoidance. You still engage. You still commit. You still act. But you act without emotional dependency. That's dominance. I observe. I don't cling. Practice this daily. Delay responses slightly. Say no without explanation. Allow things to unfold without interference. Notice how calm returns. Notice how control increases. Most people exhaust themselves, trying to hold everything together. Detached people conserve energy. They act only when necessary. They move only when clear. Efficiency beats effort. That's the key. As you master detachment, you become harder to pressure, harder to rush, harder to manipulate, because nothing external owns you. You've now learned how to stop clinging. But detachment alone is not enough. Without structure, the mind drifts back into emotion. To maintain control long-term, you need something stronger than motivation. You need discipline. You've learned to let go. Now you must learn to build. Chapter 7. Discipline builds emotional armor. Emotional control is not a personality trait. It is a system. Without structure, emotions run wild. With structure, emotions fall in line. Routine creates control. Most people rely on willpower. Willpower is unreliable. It fades under stress. Collapses under pressure. Discipline does not. Discipline functions even when motivation disappears. That's the difference. You have a choice. Emotional chaos is usually a symptom, not a cause. A lack of sleep, a lack of routine, a lack of boundaries, a lack of structure. When life is unstructured, the mind fills the gaps with anxiety. Discipline closes those gaps. Routine creates control. Look at emotionally unstable people. Their days are random. Their habits are inconsistent. Their decisions are reactive. They don't decide how their day goes. Their emotions decide for them. The disciplined mind works differently. Discipline reduces the number of decisions you need to make. Fewer decisions mean less emotional fatigue. When things are scheduled, they don't become emotional debates. You don't negotiate with yourself. You execute. That's the key. Here's an uncomfortable truth. Most emotional reactions happen because people are mentally tired. Fatigue lowers control. Structure conserves energy. Routine creates control. The disciplined mind reacts less because it decides more in advance. When you already know what you will do, emotions have less influence. There is no debate. There is only action. You have a choice. Let's make this practical. Step 1. Create a non-negotiable morning structure. Wake time, movement, silence, no phone, no news, no external input. You decide the tone of your day before the world tries to. Routine creates control. Step 2. Schedule stress on your terms. Exercise, work blocks, focused effort. When stress is intentional, it stops being overwhelming. Discipline trains resilience. That's the key. Step 3. Remove decision clutter. Same meals, same routines, same execution. Variety feels good, but consistency builds stability. Stability reduces emotional volatility. Routine creates control. Most people resist discipline because it feels restrictive. They think freedom means flexibility. It doesn't. Freedom comes from predictability you choose. Structure creates space. Notice what discipline does emotionally. You feel grounded. You feel clear. You feel less reactive. Not because life is easier, but because you are prepared. Prepared minds don't panic. Say this until it becomes automatic. Routine creates control. Say it when you don't feel like showing up. Say it when you want to skip structure. Say it when emotions argue. Discipline overrides emotion. Here's something critical to understand. Discipline is emotional armor. It absorbs shock. When something goes wrong, you don't collapse. Your routine holds you together. That's strength. Emotionally reactive people need constant reassurance. Disciplined people need structure. One leaks energy. The other stores it. You have a choice. Let's address excuses. I don't have time. I'm not motivated. I'll start tomorrow. Those are emotional defenses. Discipline doesn't negotiate. It executes. Routine creates control. As you build discipline, you'll notice others losing control around you. They rush. They panic. They overreact. You remain steady because your foundation is solid. This chapter is not about becoming rigid. It's about becoming reliable. Reliable under stress. Reliable under pressure. Reliable under uncertainty. That reliability creates confidence. But discipline alone is not enough. Structure protects you day to day, but life will still trigger you, and control is ultimately decided in one critical moment, the moment between stimulus and response. You've built armor. Now you must learn where to use it. Chapter 8. Master the gap between trigger and response. Everything changes in a fraction of a second. Not when something happens, but when you respond. Between what happens and what you do next, there is a gap. That gap decides everything. I pause. I choose. Most people don't live in that gap. They skip it. Stimulus, reaction, regret. The reaction feels automatic, unavoidable, instant, but it isn't. It's trained, and what's trained can be retrained. You have a choice. That gap is where control lives, not in strength, not in intelligence, not in intention. In pause, the ability to stop, even for 1 second, before emotion takes over. That's the key. Leaders are not faster reactors. They are better pausers. They don't eliminate emotion. They delay response. That delay creates clarity. Followers react. Leaders decide. I pause. I choose. Think about the last time you reacted emotionally. Someone said something. Something didn't go your way. Pressure appeared. Before you could think, you spoke. You acted. You leaked control. The problem wasn't the trigger. The problem was the missing pause. Triggers are inevitable. Disrespect, delay, criticism, uncertainty. You cannot control stimulus, but you can always control response. That's power. You have a choice. The gap doesn't need to be long. It doesn't need to be dramatic. 1 breath, 1 second, 1 moment of stillness. That's enough to interrupt habit. I pause. I choose. Here's the truth most people miss. Emotions peak fast, but fade quickly. If you don't act on them, anger rises. If you pause, it drops. Anxiety spikes. If you pause, it settles. Impulse demands action. If you pause, it weakens. The gap starves emotion of momentum. That's the key. Let's make this practical. Step 1. Recognize the trigger instantly. Say internally, triggered, not judgment, not analysis, just recognition. Awareness creates distance. I pause. I choose. Step 2. Physically slow the body. Lower your shoulders. Relax your jaw. Exhale slowly. The body leads the mind. Slow the body. The mind follows. That's control. Step 3. Ask one question only. What is the most controlled response here? Not the smartest. Not the most satisfying. The most controlled. That question shifts authority back to you. You have a choice. Most people act from emotion, and then justify with logic. Controlled people do the opposite. They choose first, then act cleanly. That separation is maturity. I pause. I choose. Notice this. The more intense the trigger, the more valuable the pause. High emotion narrows vision. Pause widens it. That's why calm people see options. Others miss. This gap is also where respect is built. When others expect reaction and get calm, they adjust. When they expect urgency and get patience, they hesitate. Your pause changes their behavior. That's influence. Say this phrase often. I pause. I choose. Say it when you're interrupted. Say it when you feel disrespected. Say it when pressure rises. Repetition builds reflex. Most mistakes in life are not made from lack of knowledge. They're made from lack of pause. A message sent too fast. A decision made too early. A reaction given too freely. The gap prevents damage. As you master this gap, something powerful happens. You stop being predictable. People can't rush you. They can't bait you. They can't corner you emotionally, because you don't respond on impulse. You decide. This is where leadership truly forms. Not in commanding others, but in commanding yourself. Under pressure, followers react to stimulus. Leaders operate from choice. I pause. I choose. Practice this daily. Small triggers first. Traffic. Delays. Minor disagreements. Build the muscle. Then when real pressure hits, your pause is already trained. This chapter is not theory. It's a skill. And like all skills, it improves with repetition. Pause. Choose. You've now learned how to control the moment. But mastery goes further. Eventually, you reach a point where triggers lose their power entirely, where nothing hooks you, nothing shakes you. That is the final transformation. You've learned to pause. Now let's talk about becoming untouchable. Chapter 9. Unreactive people become untouchable. There is a level of control where reactions disappear, not because nothing happens, but because nothing hooks you. When nothing triggers you, nothing owns you. I remain unshaken. Most people think power is having options. Real power is not needing to use them. It's knowing you could react, but choosing not to. That choice changes everything. You have a choice. Reactivity is a form of ownership. If someone can make you angry, they own your mood. If someone can make you anxious, they control your pace. If someone can make you desperate, they dictate your decisions. Unreactive people are free. I remain unshaken. This is emotional independence. Not numbness. Not indifference. Independence. Your emotional state no longer depends on external conditions. Praise doesn't inflate you. Criticism doesn't collapse you. Pressure doesn't rush you. That's the highest form of freedom. Look closely at people who dominate long-term. They are not constantly responding. They are not emotionally loud. They are not easily offended. They are steady. Steadiness is intimidating to people who rely on chaos. That's the key. When you stop reacting, 3 things happen immediately. First, provocation stops working. People test you less. Second, clarity increases. You see manipulation early. Third, respect rises. Not because you demand it, but because you don't chase it. I remain unshaken. Most people are reactive by default. They were trained that way. Family dynamics, social pressure, past wounds. Reactivity becomes identity. But identity can be rewritten. You have a choice. Unreactive does not mean passive. It means selective. You choose when to engage. You choose when to respond. You choose when to walk away. Walking away is not losing. When nothing pulls you, that's dominance. Here's the truth. The world constantly tests emotional boundaries. Small disrespect, subtle pressure, quiet manipulation. Reactive people respond automatically. Unreactive people observe. Observation reveals intent. That's the advantage. Let's make this practical. Step 1. Stop personalizing events. Most triggers only exist because you take things personally. Someone is late. Someone is blunt. Someone disagrees. None of that is about you until you decide it is. I remain unshaken. Step 2. Reduce emotional dependency. Ask yourself, if this outcome doesn't happen, am I still centered? If the answer is no, you're still attached. Detachment fuels unreactivity. That's the key. Step 3. Practice emotional neutrality. Neutral does not mean cold. It means balanced. No spike, no drop, just steady presence. This takes practice, but it works. Say this often. I remain unshaken. Say it when someone tries to provoke you. Say it when plans change. Say it when expectations aren't met. Repetition builds stability. As you become unreactive, you'll notice something strange. People reveal themselves faster. The manipulative become impatient. The insecure become louder. The chaotic become uncomfortable. Your calm exposes imbalance. Unreactive people don't explain themselves. Explanation invites debate. Debate invites emotion. Silence ends games. That's not avoidance. That's precision. I remain unshaken. Here's a powerful shift to internalize. You don't need to win emotionally. You don't need to be right loudly. You don't need closure from others. Closure comes from self-command. Most emotional suffering comes from needing others to behave differently. Unreactive people don't need that. They adapt. They adjust. They move on. Movement is freedom. Understand this. Nothing external deserves control over your inner state. Not opinions. Not delays. Not rejection. Not praise. When you give that control away, you become manageable. Unreactive people are not manageable. This is what untouchable really means. Not invincible. Not superior. Unhooked. Nothing sticks. Nothing lingers. Nothing dominates. I remain unshaken. Practice this daily. When something happens, ask, is reacting improving my position? If not, don't react. That question alone filters weakness. As unreactivity becomes natural, you stop spending energy defending your emotions. That energy returns to you. You think clearer. You decide cleaner. You act deliberately. This is control at its highest level. But there is one final truth. Unreactivity and discipline mean nothing without choice. At the end of every moment, one decision remains: to govern yourself or be governed by others. You've learned how to become untouchable. Now you must make the final commitment. Chapter 10. Control yourself or be controlled. Every life follows one of two paths. You either govern yourself or someone else does. There is no middle ground. I decide. I remain calm. I move with control. Pressure is not the enemy. Pressure is the test. Life does not reward intention. It rewards regulation. Who stays clear under stress. Who remains steady under chaos. Who can decide when emotions rise. That is who wins long term. You have a choice. Look around. The people who rise are not the loudest. They are not the most emotional. They are not the most reactive. They are composed. Composure compounds. Small moments of self-control stack into massive advantage over time. That's the key. Life constantly applies pressure. Deadlines. Conflict. loss, uncertainty. Under pressure, true authority is revealed. Not authority over others, authority over yourself. I decide. I remain calm. I move with control. Most people wait for life to calm down before they feel calm. That day never comes. Calm is not a condition. It is a decision, and decisions can be made. In any circumstance, you have a choice. When emotions are regulated, clarity returns. When clarity returns, options expand. When options expand, you stop being trapped. Reactive minds see one option. Controlled minds see many. That's dominance. Understand this deeply. The world does not reward effort evenly. It rewards consistency. And consistency only comes from emotional discipline. Talent without control burns out. Passion without control implodes. Ambition without control self-destructs. Calm, disciplined minds endure. I decide. I remain calm. I move with control. This is why emotional mastery outperforms motivation. Motivation is temporary. Emotion is unstable. Discipline is reliable. And reliability wins. Let's make this final chapter practical. Step 1. Decide your standard in advance. Before pressure hits, decide, how do I behave when things go wrong? If you don't decide early, emotion decides for you. You have a choice. Step 2. Measure success by regulation, not outcome. Ask yourself daily, did I stay composed today? Did I act deliberately? Did I react less than before? Progress is internal first. External results follow. That's the key. Step 3. Commit to long-term control. Not one good day. Not one calm moment. A standard. A way of operating. This is not a phase. This is an identity. I decide. I remain calm. I move with control. Most people want control without responsibility. That doesn't exist. Control requires ownership. Ownership of reactions. Ownership of habits. Ownership of discipline. When you own these, nothing external owns you. This audiobook was never about becoming emotionless. It was about becoming ungovernable, not ruled by fear, not pushed by pressure, not pulled by validation. Ungovernable people choose. Look back at what you've learned. You learned where battles are truly fought. You learned how reactions leak power. You learned how predictability creates loss. You learned how stillness disrupts pressure. You learned how acceptance restores clarity. You learned how detachment creates leverage. You learned how discipline builds armor. You learned how the pause creates choice. You learned how unreactivity creates freedom. This final chapter is the decision. From this point forward, every moment asks you a question. Who is in control right now? Your emotions or you? You answer with your behavior. I decide. I remain calm. I move with control. Most people will never make this commitment. They will keep reacting, keep explaining, keep being rushed. That is their choice. This is yours. Do not announce it. Do not explain it. Do not seek approval for it. Just live it. Quietly, consistently, relentlessly. Here is your final discipline. When pressure appears, pause. When emotion rises, breathe. When confusion hits, slow down. Then decide. Not emotionally, not urgently, deliberately. Say this until it becomes automatic. I decide. I remain calm. I move with control. Say it in conflict. Say it in silence. Say it in uncertainty. Repetition builds identity. This is how long-term dominance is built. Not through force. Not through speed. Through self-command. And self-command compounds. You are no longer training. You are choosing. Every day. Every moment. Control yourself or be controlled. The choice is always yours. Control is not loud. It is not dramatic. It is silent, steady, and disciplined. Every time you pause instead of reacting, you win. Every time you choose calm over chaos, you advance. The world does not need to change for you to succeed. You do. From this moment forward, watch your thoughts. Govern your emotions. Decide before you act. This is your challenge. For the next 24 hours, react to nothing. Observe. Breathe. Choose. Control your inner world, and the outer world will follow.